Discourse is the study of language and how it frames reality. As Ferdinand de Saussure, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Whatever, he said that meaning is malleable because the signification of the signifier isn't ever fixed. The meaning of words changes alongside with the consensus of the masses and the sensibilities of people. Offensive words don't ever stay offensive, neither do politically correct words stay harmless, because nothing is forever, time develops. And so much of modern scripted dialogue has become about framing life through storytelling functions, rather than expression of human authenticity.
Lorelaine, I'm a soldier. I play by the rules. It's what makes me who I am.
Dialogue from fiction, of course, inherently isn't realistic, because it can't be. Real-life conversations are repetitive, and a lot of the time are so decompressed to the point that sometimes there's no actual exchange of information. Whereas dialogue and storytelling can't waste any time because it must serve some sort of story or character-driven function for the themes of the story to feel cohesive and followable. Dialogue creates the theatrical diegesis of the fictional world. The way people speak and how they speak anchors the preferred reading of everything. Embarrassingly enough, I've been reading this book called Writing a Novel by Nigel Watts. Yes, that's very cringy, whatever. And it broke down the purpose of fictional dialogue into 3 incredibly clear functions without getting into the eye-rolling ideological stuff, which is that first, it's about moving the story forward. Second, giving information, and third, contributing to characterization. If anyone wants to read more about this, there's an interesting book called Overhearing Film Dialogue by Sarah Kozlov that offers an alternate 9 function. From what I remember, it did get into the political ideological interpretations and stuff, so I would read it with a grain of salt. The point is, I'm sure we all have this reaction when we're watching a performance where the emotions presented in the moment doesn't feel real, no matter how well it's acted, because these functions can be felt as the only ambition from the writer. There's no actual personal expression, just passable work, where people don't sound like people but these weird artificial robots exchanging generic character etiquettes that don't even reflect the reality of real-life human interactions, but simply put forward unoriginal and simple storytelling lines that we've become so familiar that we don't even notice anymore. The majority of modern filmmaking, especially TV show dialogue, has its quality because they're dominated by hacks. Hacks, all of them. And I would attribute this quality with the late capitalist culture we're living through now. As John Baudrillard said, postmodernism is characterized by a dominant, persistent, reproducible nature. Simulacrum, as he called it. Pop culture savvy and self-aware casual dialogue isn't a new phenomenon, but it's seemingly become a new method to try and counteract this artifice. Joss Whedon in particular is one of the key architects for this movement.
I can kill you with my brain.
For Marvel Studios, this reaches its tipping point with Joss Whedon's own Avengers, which is a movie that went complete Joss Whedon on us when it comes to committing to that weird wink.
I do. I understood that reference.
After the Avengers, pretty much every single Marvel Studios movie is identifiable by this marker, this strange dependable wink, where the writing constantly ruptures its own diegetic storytelling world in order to paradoxically create a tonal and artistic adhesive between the absurd world of superhero world building and the intimacy with characters. Even though some Marvel movies over-rely on this quality, Whedon's own Age of Ultron I think has this problem where the characters are almost too witty at times and constantly sound the same as a result.
You'll never...
Never what? You didn't finish!
But nevertheless, this quality imbues the Marvel Universe with a strange sense of compelling competence, in a way where, if you remove its embedded humor, there's actually less creative freedom that can be played with. Just look at how Aquaman and Shazam had to completely ignore the prior DC cinematic tone in order to have that creative leeway to be artistically crazier.
Call me Ocean Master.
You can take my army, you soft-bellied slug!
And I would say that the Marvel Studios movies has done a pretty good solid job at avoiding the cringy artificial emotional moments that's become so increasingly present in big budget movies. I mean, not counting the Ant-Man films, but I would attribute this to Marvel's capacity to create emotional movement through this self-aware wink and wit. God damn it. Every director follows the same set of MCU tonal rules to frame their own styles differently. James Gunn weaves the humor into the content of the drama, so they become indissoluble.
Both Yondu and David Hasselhoff went on kick-ass adventures and hooked up with hot women.
I guess David Hasselhoff did kind of end up being my dad after all.
As a result, the dialogue is still motivated by emotion, but it's textured by the humor. Taika Waititi, on the other hand, relies more on improv in order to tap into the natural bind between the characters and the actors.
I don't want to fight your sister. That's a family issue.
She's an evil being.
I don't care what she is. I'm not fighting any more beings. I'm sick of it.
And because of this honesty in the dialogue, it creates a collision between the mundane realism of people and the insanity of the genre. It's a bizarre recipe for humor, but it's so fucking Waititi, it's awesome. Jon Favreau similarly uses improv, but it's less focused on jokes and more on creating a sense of narrative and causal cohesiveness within a much more tighter actor cooperative process. Robert Downey Jr.'s actual personality is basically indistinguishable with Tony Stark, which is both funny, but it also makes all the dialogue carry almost more honesty and a relaxed sense of poignancy.
Hit him. Oh God, you're gonna steal my kidney and sell it?
Shane Black has his intricate Shane Black witty dialogue. Even the more bland directors like Alan Taylor adopts the style. Keep in mind I'm being incredibly relaxed when it comes to the parameters of what constitutes with dialogue, because it's debatable what a unit of meaning is, but the point is that the internal mechanics of the world is relaxed because of the way people speak. Each joke and witty, relaxed piece of dialogue isn't just decoration, well, most of the time it is, but it also implicitly contributes in creating a portent of artistic freedom, an adhesive that can be applied to just about any style for any dramatic purpose.
Rage and vengeance, anger, loss, regret, they're all tremendous motivators. They really clear the mind, so I'm good to go.
And the Russo brothers completely understand this, and out of all the directors, they play with this adhesive effect the most. Thor and Rocket's exchange from Infinity War, I think, is a particular masterclass in using dialogue to control the diegesis of the storytelling scene, because the wink that has come to characterize the entire MCU is subtly addressed in the scene through Thor's denial.
Well, he's never fought me.
Yeah, he has.
He's never fought me twice. And I'm getting a new hammer, don't forget.
And what if you're wrong?
Well, if I'm wrong, then what more could I lose?
Him hiding his trauma with a winking smile and explicit attempts at becoming emotionally opaque through the use of optimistic humor makes all the emotions feel all the more emotionally revealing, and is again something that is practiced at the beginning of Avengers Endgame. It bypasses the simulacrum issue on relying on dependable meaningless dialogue by allowing the actors to exist symbiotically with the characters. The charismatic ambitions of both parties are melded, so the intentions of the artistic mechanisms from the dialogue becomes more sincere and therefore avoids falsehoods. Language isn't just a one-way process. It doesn't just model how you frame the world, it's subject to the internal workings of us. And sometimes to be taken seriously, that requires to be less serious yourself. And obviously Marvel isn't the only studio that has made movies that have benefited from this improvisational style, but they're certainly the studio that harvested and benefited from this the most.
Best of both worlds.
Pop culture has entered a self-reflective stage now, where the audience has become so knowing to the construction of the fiction that a self-referential tone has become this strange new form of negotiation between the audience and the storyteller. I'm sure most people can tell the difference between reality and fiction, so the strategy to wink at the self is almost revelatory, a new form of agreement, if you will. Storytelling language is always changing, and now the new dominant form of fictional negotiation is bizarrely enough about creating an illusion through transparency. I sound like a complete asshole.